This is HOA Karen Patrol. The minutes packet said one thing, and the timeline said another. This is your final warning. Kathleen White shoved a document at me so hard the papers flapped against my chest. I caught it on reflex. The page was a mess of black boxes, redactions stacked so thick I could barely see 3 words in a row. You see those black boxes? Those are your answers. That is what you get when you question my authority. I looked down at the paper. It was supposed to be a violation notice, but half the text was covered. No date, no citation number, just a header that said Canyon Springs Design Review Association and a wall of black ink. I live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, in a neighborhood where management enables the loudest person, and Kathleen had spent 2 years proving she was the loudest. She held the title of compliance officer, which she treated like a badge and a weapon. I work as a water treatment plant operator on strict schedules, which means I cannot afford surprise hearings, tow threats, or mystery fees that land on my account without warning. This was not my first rodeo with Kathleen. But this time, something felt different. The redactions were sloppy, the tone was desperate, and I had seen this exact document template once before, 3 years ago, in a case that never made sense. Kathleen crossed her arms and tapped her foot. I have all day, and so does my fine meter. I did not. I am on a strict medication schedule, and a tow or court day would throw everything off. That was the pressure point she always hit. What am I being cited for? Unauthorized vehicle storage. Expired compliance window. Failure to respond to prior notice. I never got a prior notice. She pulled out her phone and waved it at me like it was a gavel. I sent it. Portal upload. Timestamp proves it. I opened my phone and pulled up the HOA portal. My inbox was empty. I held the screen toward her. Then you deleted it. Not my problem. That is not how that works. She smiled. It was the smile of someone who had done this before and knew I could not prove otherwise. I do not need proof. I have paperwork and vibes. There it was, the line that made my blood pressure spike. She had said the same thing 3 years ago to a neighbor who lost his car to a tow over a landscaping complaint that was never documented. He fought it for months and got nowhere. The board backed her. Management backed her. The case just vanished. And now she was doing it again. To me, I glanced down at the redacted notice. One line near the bottom was partially visible, subject to immediate enforcement per resolution dated. The rest was blacked out. What resolution? The one you agreed to when you bought here. I have read the CC and Rs. There is no resolution about vehicle storage. Kathleen snapped her fingers twice, sharp and loud. Clearly you missed the amendment. I will email you a copy. Maybe. She turned and started walking back toward the street, dragging her folding sign stand behind her. It scraped against the concrete with a metallic screech that set my teeth on edge. I looked down at the notice again. The black boxes were not even aligned properly. Some of them bled into the margins. It looked like someone had printed a standard template and then spent 5 minutes with a Sharpie trying to hide something. That was when I decided to reopen the case. I called my friend Derek. He is a local paralegal who helps me organize evidence packets when things get messy. I met him 2 years ago during a zoning fight, and he has been my go-to ever since. He answered on the second ring. What did she do this time? Redacted notice. Fake prior citation. portal upload that does not exist. Classic Kathleen. You want me to pull the records? Yeah. And I need you to dig into something else. 3 years ago, there was a guy named Ron Miller who got towed over a landscaping violation. The case disappeared. No minutes. No hearing. Just gone. You think it is connected? I think Kathleen uses the same playbook every time, and this time she got sloppy. Derek was quiet for a second. I will pull everything I can from the county and the management company. Meet me tomorrow morning. And bring that notice. I hung up and stared at the document. The black boxes were the key. If I could figure out what was underneath, I could prove she had been altering records for years. But first, I had to deal with the immediate threat. Kathleen had said the fine meter was running, which meant she had already started the enforcement clock. If I did not respond within 72 hours, she could authorize a tow. And the tow yard closes soon. If they take my vehicle, I cannot recover it until tomorrow. I grabbed my keys and headed out. I needed to document everything before she had a chance to change the story again. The next morning, I met Derek at a coffee shop near the courthouse. He had a folder thick enough to double as a weapon. Ron Miller. Landscaping violation. Tow authorization dated March 19th, 3 years ago. He slid the first page across the table. Notice the signature. I looked at the bottom of the page. It was Kathleen's signature, but the handwriting looked rushed. The date next to it was March 15th, 4 days before the tow. Backdated. Derek nodded. Now look at this. He pulled out another page. This is the board meeting minutes from March 10th. Ron is not mentioned anywhere. No landscaping discussion. No vote to authorize enforcement. So she just made it up? She made it up, backdated the paperwork, and the management company processed it without checking. Ron fought it, but by the time he got a lawyer involved, the minutes were locked, and the tow company had already been paid. I felt my stomach tighten. That is exactly what she is doing to me right now. Derek pulled out a third page. This one was a screenshot of the HOA portal audit log. It showed a series of uploads and deletions, all time-stamped within the same hour 3 years ago. Look at the timestamp. March 15th, 2 p.m. That is the same day Kathleen signed Ron's tow authorization. And look at the user ID. It was Kathleen's account. She deleted the original violation notice and uploaded a new one with the date changed. Derek leaned back. And here is the kicker. I pulled the metadata on the PDF she uploaded. The file creation date is March 14th, a full day after the meeting where it was supposedly approved. I stared at the pages. This was not just selective enforcement. This was fraud. What do I do with this? Derek tapped the folder. You document everything. Every notice she sends you. Every email. Every interaction. And you file a formal records request with the management company. Force them to produce the original upload logs, the meeting minutes, and every enforcement action Kathleen has authorized in the last 3 years. That is going to take weeks. It is going to take 72 hours if you file it under the Idaho Nonprofit Corporation Act. They have to respond within 3 business days, or you can escalate to the state. I took the folder and stood up. I need to get this filed today. Derek grabbed my arm. One more thing. Kathleen is going to escalate when she realizes you are digging. Be ready. He was right. By the time I got home, There was a vendor truck parked in front of my house. The side of the truck said Compliance Verification Services. A guy in a polo shirt was taking photos of my car with a clipboard in hand. I walked up. "Can I help you?" He looked up, startled. "Just doing a compliance check. HOA sent us." "For what?" "Vehicle storage audit. We are verifying all active citations." "I do not have an active citation." He tapped the clipboard. "Says here you do. Unauthorized vehicle. Expired window." "I do not have an expired window. My registration is current." He shrugged. "I just take the photos. You will have to talk to the HOA." I pulled out my phone and started recording. "What is your name?" He hesitated. "Mike. Mike Torres." "And who hired you?" "The HOA." "Which person at the HOA?" He looked uncomfortable. "I get work orders through the management company. I do not deal with individuals." I stepped closer. "So you do not know if this work order is legitimate?" "Look, man, I am just doing my job." "Then do it right. Check your work order. Check the VIN. Check the registration database. Because if you file a false report, you are liable, not the HOA." Mike looked at his clipboard again. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Yeah, it is Mike. I am at the Canyon Springs address you sent me. The resident is saying the citation is not valid. He is recording." He paused. "You want me to do what?" Another pause. "No, I am not doing that." He hung up. "I am leaving. You can file a complaint with my company if you want, but I am not filing a report without verification." He got in his truck and drove off. I watched him go, then checked my phone. The recording was clear. Kathleen had sent a vendor to provoke me, and the vendor had refused to play along. That night, I filed the records request. I used the template Derek had given me, citing the Idaho Nonprofit Corporation Act and requesting every document related to enforcement actions, board meeting minutes, and portal activity logs for the past 3 years. I sent it certified mail to the management company and copied the board president. 2 days later, I got a response. It was not from the management company. It was from Kathleen. "Your request has been received and is under review. Per association policy, records requests require board approval and may take up to 30 days to process. Any further inquiries should be directed to the compliance office." If you are enjoying this story, hit the like button and subscribe for more HOA drama, where the homeowner fights back and wins. I forwarded the email to Derek. "She is stalling." He called me 5 minutes later. "She does not have the authority to delay a statutory records request. Forward this to the management company and tell them you will file a complaint with the Idaho Secretary of State if they do not comply within 72 hours. I did exactly that. I sent a follow-up email to the management company, copying the board president again, and included a link to the Idaho statute. 24 hours later, I got a call from the management company. It was a woman named Lisa who introduced herself as the assistant property manager. "Mr. She paused, checking her notes. "I am calling about your records request. We are working on pulling the documents, but I wanted to let you know that some of the files you requested may not be available." "Why not?" She hesitated. "The portal system was upgraded 2 years ago. Some of the older logs were not migrated." "That is convenient. I understand your frustration. but I do not control the IT infrastructure. Can you at least confirm that Kathleen White authorized enforcement actions without board approval? I cannot confirm or deny any specific enforcement actions without reviewing the full file. Then review the full file and call me back. I hung up. This was the pattern. Delay. Deflect. Lose the records. Make it so exhausting that people just gave up. But I was not giving up. Because that night, my doorbell camera caught something. It was Kathleen. She walked up to my porch around 11 p.m., looked directly at the camera, and then placed a notice on my door. The timestamp was clear. The footage was clear. And the next morning, when I asked her about it, she lied. I called her from my driveway. I got your notice. Good. You have 48 hours to comply. The notice says it was delivered 3 days ago. It was. I have doorbell footage of you placing it last night at 11 p.m. Silence. You want to try that again? She hung up. I forwarded the footage to Derek, the management company, and the board president. I also saved 3 copies to separate cloud accounts. That afternoon, I got another notice. This one was not from Kathleen. It was from a law office. Notice of intent to file small claims action. Plaintiff, Canyon Springs Design Review Association. Defendant, me. Amount, $850. Grounds, unpaid compliance fees, administrative costs, and enforcement penalties. I called Derek. She is trying to force me into court. Of course she is. It is a pressure tactic. She knows you will have to take a day off work, hire a lawyer, and spend money defending yourself. Most people settle just to make it go away. I am not settling. Good. Because I just found something. He paused. I pulled the financial records for the HOA. There is a line item in the budget called compliance revenue. It is a monthly target. Kathleen gets a quarterly bonus based on how much enforcement income she generates. You are kidding. I am not. She has a quota. And guess what? The months where she hit the highest numbers all line up with her biggest enforcement campaigns. So she is farming fines. She is farming fines. And the board knows about it because it is in the approved budget. I felt my pulse hammering. That is extortion. It is incentivized enforcement, which is legal in Idaho as long as it is disclosed in the budget. But here is the thing. The budget was never disclosed to the homeowners. It was approved in a closed executive session. Can we use that? Absolutely. It proves selective enforcement and financial motive. Combined with the backdated notices and the doorbell footage, you have a pattern of abuse. I sat down. This was bigger than I thought. Kathleen was not just a petty tyrant. She was running a scheme, and the board was enabling her because it made them money. The next day, I got a text from a neighbor I barely knew. Her name was Angela, and she lived 2 streets over. I heard you are fighting Kathleen. Can we talk? We met at a park near the neighborhood entrance. Angela brought a folder. I got towed 2 years ago. Fake landscaping violation. I fought it, but the board sided with Kathleen. I lost my car for 3 days and had to pay $600 to get it back. She opened the folder and handed me a stack of papers. I kept everything. Notice, tow receipt, meeting minutes, and this. She pulled out a photo. It was a shot of her front yard taken the day before the tow. The landscaping was perfect. No violations. No overgrowth. Nothing. Kathleen lied. And when I showed this to the board, they said the photo was not admissible because it was not taken by an official inspector. Who is the official inspector? Kathleen. Angela leaned forward. I know there are others, people she has targeted, people who gave up because it was not worth the fight. If you are building a case, I want in. I took the folder. I will add this to the file. She grabbed my arm. Be careful. Kathleen does not lose. And when she feels cornered, she gets mean. She was right. 2 days later, I got another escalation. I was at work when my phone buzzed. It was a photo from a neighbor. My car was hooked to a tow truck. The driver was standing next to Kathleen, both of them staring at my driveway like they had just won something. I called the tow company. This is an illegal tow. I have current registration and no valid citation. The dispatcher sounded bored. We have authorization from the HOA. If you have a dispute, take it up with them. I have a dispute with you. You are towing my car without legal grounds. If you do not release it, I am filing a stolen vehicle report. The line went quiet. Then the dispatcher put me on hold. 2 minutes later, a different voice came on. This is the manager. What is the VIN? I gave it to him. He typed for a moment. We are releasing the vehicle. The authorization we received does not match the documentation we require. Your car will be back in your driveway within the hour. I hung up and called Derek. They tried to tow me. Did they succeed? No. I threatened a stolen vehicle report, and they backed off. Good. That is another count. Unauthorized tow attempt. That is a violation of Idaho Code 491006. You can file a complaint with the state. I am going to do more than that. That night, I set up a phone call with Kathleen. I told her I wanted to resolve this before it went further. She agreed, but only if I called her on speaker so she could record it for her records. Perfect. Because I was recording too, and Derek was on mute, listening. The call started calm. Kathleen, I want to understand what I am being cited for. Unauthorized vehicle storage. My car is registered. It is parked in my driveway. What is unauthorized about that? The compliance window expired. What compliance window? The one outlined in the amendment. I have never seen an amendment about vehicle storage. That is not my problem. Ignorance of the rules is not a defense. Then send me the amendment. I already did. I never received it. Yes, you did. Portal upload. Timestamp proves it. I opened my portal right now. It is not there. She laughed. Then you deleted it. I held the phone closer. Kathleen, are you saying I deleted a document from the HOA portal that only you have admin access to? Silence. Because that would mean you are lying. And I am recording this call. Her voice went cold. You are recording without my consent? Idaho is a one-party consent state. I do not need your consent. But you should know that you just admitted on tape that you control the portal uploads and that you have been deleting documents. She hung up. Derek unmuted. That was beautiful. She just confessed to tampering with records. I smiled. Now we use it. The next morning, I filed a formal complaint with the management company, attaching the call recording, the doorbell footage, Angela's file, and the financial records showing Kathleen's bonus structure. I also sent a copy to every homeowner in the association, using the emergency contact list from the last annual meeting. Kathleen walked into a meeting 2 days later and found 60 people waiting for her, all of them holding printed copies of the evidence. She tried to start the meeting, but a homeowner in the third row stood up. "Why are we paying you a bonus to harass us?" Another stood. "You towed my car 2 years ago. You lied about the violation." A third. "You backdated my fine. I have the proof." Kathleen slammed a pair of work gloves on the table. "This is out of order. You do not have the floor." The board president, a man named Greg, stood up. "Actually, they do. This is an emergency session, and you are not running it." Kathleen turned to him. "You approved my budget." Greg looked uncomfortable. "We approved a compliance program. We did not approve fraud." "That is not fraud. That is enforcement." I stood up. "Then explain this." I played the call recording. Her voice filled the room. "You deleted it. Then you deleted it. Then my voice, because that would mean you are lying. And I am recording this call." The room erupted. Kathleen tried to talk over the noise, but no one was listening. Greg called for a vote. A motion to suspend Kathleen pending an independent audit passed unanimously. Kathleen grabbed her sign stand and stormed out. But I was not done. Because I had been holding something back. Something I had not told Derek, or Angela, or anyone. I had a trump card, and timing was the whole weapon. 3 weeks earlier, I had filed a public records request with the county clerk. I wanted copies of every HOA filing, every amendment, every resolution that had been recorded. It took 2 weeks to process, but when I got the file, I found something. There was no vehicle storage amendment. There was no compliance resolution. Kathleen had been enforcing rules that did not exist. And the kicker? She had filed a fake amendment with the county 2 years ago, but she had never recorded it with the state, which meant it was not legally binding. I had been sitting on that information, waiting for the right moment. And the right moment was now. The next board meeting was packed. Kathleen showed up with a lawyer. She thought she could fight this. Greg opened the meeting. "We are here to review the findings of the independent audit and determine next steps regarding Kathleen White's role as compliance officer." Kathleen stood. "I have served this association for 4 years. I have increased compliance revenue by 30%. I have enforced the rules fairly and consistently." I raised my hand. "Can I respond?" Greg nodded. I stood and pulled out a document. This is a copy of the HOA amendments filed with the county over the past 5 years. I pulled out a second document. This is a copy of the amendments filed with the Idaho Secretary of State. Notice anything missing? Kathleen went pale. "The vehicle storage amendment you have been enforcing for 2 years does not exist. You filed a fake amendment with the county, but you never recorded it with the state. Which means it is not legally binding. Which means every fine, every tow, every enforcement action you have authorized under that rule is void." The room went silent. Kathleen shot to her feet. "That is a procedural error. It does not invalidate the rule." Actually, it does. Under Idaho law, an HOA amendment is not enforceable unless it is recorded with the state and disclosed to the membership. You did neither. which means every homeowner you find under that rule has grounds for a refund. Every homeowner you towed has grounds for reimbursement. And every homeowner you threatened has grounds for a harassment claim. Her lawyer whispered something to her. She sat down. Greg looked at the documents. Is this accurate? I handed him the file. Call the Secretary of State. They will confirm. Greg made the call. 5 minutes later, he hung up. The amendment is not on file. Kathleen tried one last move. She pulled out her phone and held it up. I have documentation. I have emails. I have proof that the board approved this. I smiled. Then let us see it. She hesitated. Because if you have proof, you should share it. Right now. In front of everyone. She did not move. I pulled out my phone. I have something to share. I played a clip. It was a recording from a board meeting 2 years ago. Kathleen's voice was clear. We need to increase revenue. I propose a vehicle storage rule. We can enforce it selectively and generate at least $10,000 a year. Greg's voice responded. Is that legal? Kathleen laughed. Who is going to check? The room exploded. Homeowners were shouting. The board members were arguing. Kathleen was trying to leave, but the doors were blocked by people demanding answers. Greg banged the gavel. Order. We are voting right now. All in favor of removing Kathleen White from the position of compliance officer, say aye. Every hand went up. All in favor of rescinding every enforcement action authorized under the Vehicle Storage Amendment, say aye. Every hand went up again. All in favor of referring this matter to the Idaho Attorney General for investigation, say aye. Every hand. Kathleen grabbed her things and left. She did not say a word. But I was not done. Because the cold case was not just about Kathleen. It was about the system that enabled her. 2 weeks later, the independent audit came back. It found that Kathleen had backdated 17 notices, deleted 23 portal entries, and authorized 9 illegal tows over a 3-year period. The total damages exceeded $40,000. The management company was fired. The board hired an interim manager who froze all enforcement actions until a full policy review could be completed. And Kathleen? She got placed on a no-contact directive by management. She was not allowed to communicate with any homeowner, attend any meeting, or access any HOA property. She tried to fight it, but her lawyer dropped her after the Attorney General opened an investigation. The HOA removed the enforcement action against me and voided the ledger entry. I got a formal apology letter and a refund check for every fee they had charged me. Ron Miller, the neighbor who had been towed 3 years ago, got his money back too. So did Angela. So did 8 other homeowners who had been targeted by Kathleen's scheme. But the best part? The part that made all of it worth it? Kathleen had been so confident in her system that she had kept records. Detailed records. Spreadsheets tracking every fine, every tow, every fee. And those records showed exactly how much revenue she had generated each quarter. The audit also found that she had been skimming. Small amounts, never more than a few $100s at a time. But over 3 years it added up to $12,000 that had been transferred to a personal account. The Attorney General charged her with theft and fraud. She pled guilty and got probation, plus restitution. And the HOA? They held a special election. I ran for the board. So did Derek. So did Angela. We won. The board election challenge flipped the power dynamic. Kathleen had spent years building a system where the loudest person won. We tore that system down and rebuilt it with transparency, accountability, and actual oversight. The new board passed a rule that all enforcement actions had to be reviewed by an independent third party before they could be authorized. We also passed a rule that all financial records had to be published quarterly and made available to every homeowner. And we banned compliance bonuses. Forever. 6 months later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Ron Miller. Thank you. I never thought anyone would reopen that case. You gave me my dignity back. I put the letter on my fridge, because that was the whole point. This was never just about fines or tows or HOA drama. It was about people who had been gaslit, silenced, and told their proof did not matter. Kathleen had spent years convincing people that she was untouchable, that the system would always protect her, that fighting back was pointless. But she was wrong, because the one thing she never counted on was someone who had the time, the resources, and the sheer stubbornness to dig through 3 years of records and connect every lie she had ever told. I did not start this fight to be a hero. I started it because I was tired of being targeted. But somewhere along the way, it became bigger than me. It became about every homeowner who had been afraid to speak up, every neighbor who had been fined into silence, every person who had been told their evidence did not count. And in the end, we won. Kathleen tried to appeal the no-contact order. She failed. She tried to run for the board in the next election. She got 4 votes. The neighborhood is quieter now. People actually talk to each other. The HOA sends reminders instead of threats. And when someone has a question, they get an answer instead of a redacted document and a lecture about authority. I still see Kathleen sometimes. She drives past my house on her way out of the neighborhood. She does not wave. She does not stop. She just stares straight ahead, like if she does not make eye contact, I will disappear. But I am not going anywhere, because this is my home, and I fought for it. The cold case is closed. The fraud is exposed. The board is reformed. And the compliance officer who thought she could do whatever she wanted learned the hard way that paperwork cuts both ways. Kathleen demanded proof, and then she panicked when I handed out copies. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all the support.